Reader Mail
number 16. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for Reader Mail number 16. For those that don't know, my name is Saul Bridges, and alongside me is
Brett Beck.
And we bring you this every other Friday at noon Central Time on YouTube and podcast services alike, where we ask you guys to ask us questions. And you may be asking, who are these guys? Well, we are two parts of Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast that, of course, goes up every Monday at noon Central Time on YouTube and all podcast services. So you can go ahead and get a daily dose of PlayStation.
Except for Podbean. I don't know what's going on
with
Podbean.
Podbean, we blame Podbean, but...
Yeah.
Not a daily dose.
I mean, we're on there, but we're just not on there this week. Every other episode is hit fine. They pull, apparently, from iTunes, and iTunes has the episode, but Podbean does not.
Weird.
We don't know.
But we ask you guys to ask us questions, and we go through Facebook, Twitter, and Discord, where you can find all these question posts. In our Discord, it's Reader Mail Submissions. On Twitter, it is our pinned tweet, always. And on Facebook, Brett posts when he remembers.
I've been doing pretty good.
Yeah, and I can't blame him. I forget a lot with Twitter. But
I even posted the community stake already. Which is supposed to go up on Wednesdays. So I'm doing good.
It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
But yeah, if you guys like PlayStation Podcast, you can catch us weekly every Monday at 12 Central. And check us out there. And if you just want to hang back and relax and kick it with the boys, then speaking of which, The Boys is a really dope-ass show.
Yeah.
You can catch Dickish at Best, our off-topic podcast where me, Blaze, and Brett get together and have fun. That's every other Friday. That is on the Friday that is not Reader Mail.
That show is literally anything. That's what, and I've slowly over time, it's like we realize we just sit down and we just talk, and whatever comes out,
it's like if you're hanging out in the room with us and you're a mute and you can't speak. And you just get to listen to us.
That's the best description of a podcast I've ever heard.
You get to be part of a podcast or a conversation you're not really a part of. But hey, you guys can become part of conversations by asking us questions, and we're going to answer them. So we'll start off with Facebook like normal. I had a 5-hour energy shot, so like I'm up in Adam. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Just hulked out. Venomed out or whatever. I can't say venom. I'm not talking about the symbiote.
That's owned by Sony. Can't say that.
I am talking about the venom that my boy Bane takes, but I could see how those two could get easily conflated. But our first question comes from one of our good friends and patrons, and who will also probably be hanging out with us next weekend, which will be the next, I don't know, whatever.
It'll be in the next Dickish at Best y'all see that is not the next one.
Yeah.
Dickish at Best number 7, I think.
It'll be 8, if I'm not mistaken. We just did 7.
Yes, it will be 8.
Yeah, we're so organized, guys. Anyway, Mr. Corey Crash Hickerson asked us, if you and Saul pulled a Freaky Fridays, quote, swapped bodies, what would be some things you would do as the other person?
Brett's fucking car, because I can't drive a stick.
That is true. That would be, well, okay.
I know how to drive a stick. I'm just not efficient at it because I haven't done it in so long.
That's what I was about to say. Is I think that
I'll grind out his transmission.
If anything, you would probably you'd probably mess up some.
A couple teeth would be going off of that.
Yeah, I would have to probably get a new clutch.
Yeah, new clutch for sure.
That would be for the car side of things. That'd probably be the worst thing. I think you could probably get going. And there's a chance that, well, I don't know, because the thing about driving that's weird is, like, do you drive with one hand anyway?
Yeah.
So if you really drive with one hand anyway, all it comes down into is
muscle memory,
being able to focus on shifting. So I don't think that you would hit anything in terms of left or right as much as you would just be really rough at trying to get going.
It's the one thing that stick is I've always had a problem with is the slowing down and shifting down. But like with the car I've learned on, and I think with pretty much everything, if you're slowing down to a stop, you just throw it neutral, right?
You can. And that's honestly what I do most of the time. There is benefits to slowing down by gearing down, and that's when you're going around specific corners and stuff, and you're not trying to lose your... And also, it just saves your brakes.
And you'll avoid possibly stalling out depending on traffic around corners and stuff too, right?
Well, not really. I mean, there are times where I take a corner and I'm wanting to take it real aggressively, and I just flick it into neutral real quick, and then I just know what gear I'm going to be going back into, and I'll just go neutral, hit the corner, and then immediately shift back into the gear I need to be, and that works fine. But there are times when you have more gradual corners that you still want to slow down on because they're steep is not the word you use for a corner, but they're drastic enough.
A corner can be steep.
I mean, it can be, but I'm not talking about that as much as I'm talking about how much of it's such a turn that you'd be turning hard enough that it couldn't. Yeah, I guess.
That's what it is. A sharp turn.
Look, a
sharp corner.
Sorry, I didn't take my 5-hour energy knowledge pill.
Yeah. 5-hour energy made pills. Wow.
Do they not?
No.
I really thought that they did. I mean, I know they make the shot, but I thought that there's somebody who makes essentially the same thing in pill form.
Yeah, I've been up since 6 a.m. and I went to bed at 1 a.m. So I'm sleepy.
Ooh.
Or I'm like a skeleton of like my former self right now.
That's okay. Emo boys love that stuff. But anyway, so you think you'd wreck my car? What else?
That's probably it. Honestly, wouldn't even know. It's a bad question, Corey.
I think it's a great question, but that's because I would make you do all the things I know that you hate. And I mean this in the sense of I'd be setting you up so that when you came back into your body, that you'd have to deal with the aftermath of all the
that's
things.
That's the case, that I'm shaving off your beard.
That's fine, because I'm going to do the same thing to you. And realistically, though, that's not what I was getting at. As much as I was saying, like, you know how you're not really the person who just goes out and helps everybody, and I don't mean that in any kind of a bad way.
Are you
That's
saying
just
like
not
I'll text everybody on my phone, be like, you need help?
I'd be like, hey, let me come help, and I'd do some of it so that I'd set I'd set the precedent that Saul's helpful all of a sudden. He's great. Somebody will run out of gas and be like, let's call Saul. Saul will help us since I ran out of gas, and then they'll be calling you left and right. Can you help me come get gas?
Funny thing is, I don't have that many people in my phone book. You're probably going to get a lot of questions. You're probably going to get Gavin, who's going to tell you to fuck off. You're probably going to get Joe, who's in Dallas. Or family members who don't live near me.
I'll just tell Joe.
Except for Seth.
Joe, if you ever need anything, the slightest thing, you need to ride to work, hit your boy up.
My baby girl Joe knows that already.
Anyway, there's that. I'm just trying to think of weird things that are pet peeves of yours that I could essentially set up to where the precedent gets set that you're okay with them, and then people just start being open about doing them around you.
I don't think you could do that much damage in one day.
It probably would be hard to do in one day. I mean, I'm trying to remember, is Freaky Friday literally just 24 hours?
I don't even think it's 24 hours. I think it's like 12. I'm pretty sure they wake up and by the next night it's done.
Is that how it goes? I thought that they had to do something to get back in their own body, but it's literally been so long since I've
never seen that movie.
Let's see. You've never seen the movie?
Nope.
It's not a bad movie, actually, by any standard.
Well, I like Jamie Lee Curtis, and that Lindsay Lohan was good. What's
that Lindsay Lohan?
Well, there's like a dissociative break between Lindsay Lohan and Amanda Bynes. What's the really good Amanda Bynes movie with Channing Tatum?
With Channing Tatum?
Yeah, it's
I genuinely don't know.
It's like a soccer movie, I think. But that's way too far off the question. But yeah, like honestly, I probably wouldn't do anything. I'd probably just be like, I don't know.
That's what I thought. So at the end, there's an act. I'm only going to spoil the movie completely. But again, at the end, there's an act that she has to do where she accepts somebody because they make them happy, blah, blah, blah. And the act of selflessness lets their bodies flip back around. So I was right. I don't know that there's a time limit to it.
She's the man. It's the best.
She's the man. Okay, that does sound familiar, but that was probably a younger Channing Tatum, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's back when Amanda Bynes was not crazy.
I don't know enough about Amanda Bynes to know what's up with her.
Well, she likes Drake.
Well, here's the thing about this, right? Some people we immediately say that they're crazy because they just, and I think what we're doing is we're using the fill-in word of crazy for somebody who just had obviously a major change. We don't know the reason necessarily.
Have no idea.
I don't know anything about Amanda Bynes' situation. Now, Lindsay Lohan's all drug related. We know that. I mean, she went off the deep end, drugs and drinking and substance abuse. That's one of the things that happens. Then you have things like Miley Cyrus, where suddenly she went from being the Disney girl to just not shaving her arms and stuff like that. Good Lord. That's not crazy as much as it's just, is that really, think about it this way. You remember the Amanda Bynes show, right?
Yes.
Is it that weird to think that an adult humor version of Amanda Bynes who made skits like I'm gonna slap you with fish and then slap you with fish. Do you think it's that wild to think that she would put a sentence out there on Twitter, something like that?
That's what she looks like now.
That says, I want Drake to murder my vagina. That's not that out of hand. But my point being is that you get these setups from like, Miley Cyrus is probably the prime example of everyone saying that Miley had gone crazy when all she really had done was just had the effect that you would expect. Was it Moore's law? For every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So eventually it caught up to where all this repressing and crazy stuff that they were doing for the Disney show for Hannah Montana ended up bouncing back around, and now that she wasn't under those things, she was just like going wild. And I don't mean that in terms of crazy,
like partying.
Yeah,
She
essentially
says,
doing all the stuff that she feels like she couldn't do because she had the auspices of being Hannah Montana, and you got to be careful because kids look up to you, you know.
She said, I only like Drake because he's so ugly. His ugly cheeks at the EA conference. Apparently she watches E3. Fine, he is not, but he knows he's ugly. I've spoken to him. This is all like 2013 and 14 Amanda Bynes, by the way, people. This is not current. I don't know what she's like currently.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, good question.
How's Lindsay Lohan going right now?
I don't know. But it's your
Boy,
turn.
she's not very old. 33.
Yeah, what do you mean? She's not even 10 years older than we are.
Sometimes she looks rough, man. I don't know what else to say.
She was like, I'm trying to think when Parent Trap came out, and she was like, what, 10 or 11?
Probably.
I was like 6.
I know that I thought she was fine in Mean Girls, which I was young enough to be. So that makes sense that the age would be appropriate scaling up. It's just, I thought she was even older, but I guess it's just my mind, and I haven't seen a movie with her in so long at this point, or anything with her in it so long, but I've seen pictures of when she was really broken down.
Yeah.
So that's, you get that weird image that sticks in your head.
She looks like she's older than that.
Yeah, anyway, I would try and just annoy you as much as I could, but I guess I wouldn't do anything irreparable because I love you also. I don't want to like have you get a divorce or something crazy.
I would shave Vash.
Shave Bindi. She's the one who I can't seem to get her hair away from. Just take her outside and shave her down.
I got Bindi hair in my backpack.
Every time I leave genuinely here. Not surprised.
Every time I leave here, there's Bindi hair in my backpack.
And I literally sweep almost every day.
It's crazy.
Even back here. And she's not even back here. It all bothers me.
Discord makes me laugh sometimes.
Nice. Okay, let me see. Let me go up to the next question we have.
I don't know what questions are on Facebook, by the way, people, because I don't have a Facebook, so I like these the most. Because there's no way I could possibly even accidentally read these.
Okay, here we are. You ready?
Right.
We have, is there any game you would protest? And that's from Mr. Josh Ayers, one of our patrons.
No. Game, I think, by protest, I mean, I won't buy, but there's a lot of games like that. Like, too many games I can list. But I would not actively, like, start a mob or anything for any game. Not of any that I can think of off the top of my head for this question, at least. One of the
most extreme games I can think of that would have given some form of ire is the game that we brought up on the show a number of times, that Hatred game that the guy made for PC. But honestly, even then, I think the game was gratuitous, and I don't really think that there was a point for its gratuity. I think that there's other games that are very out there like that, like the Darkness and the Darkness 2 are very bloody games and very, but it's one of those things where everything
I think Hatred was a little different.
No, it definitely is, and some of it comes down to why are you doing it, and I think that there's a compelling story for you to understand the Darkness. It's set in the right tone and world, whereas a game like Hatred is very hard for a lot of people to understand because it really just comes down to, it's like if you took only the violent fantasy trip that you can get from playing like Grand Theft Auto, and you stripped away all the stuff that Grand Theft Auto lets you do that's not violent, because there is things that Grand Theft Auto lets you do that's not violent. Definitely Grand Theft Auto 5.
You can go play golf and stuff in Grand Theft Auto 5.
But, anyway, it's like if you took that and then took it to the nth degree, as we're going to say, and then essentially gave it like the view that you would look. It looks like almost, what's funny, but it almost looks like if a stereotypical mom who doesn't understand violent video games is like, I imagine a violent video game looking like a Scottish Norwegian death metal band just came into an American neighborhood on a dark Sunday and murdered everybody. But
it's funny you said death metal band, because for some reason, whenever I picture,
I meant to say black metal band, but whatever.
I was thinking of like the picture of the main character for Hatred. I keep thinking of why did I forget his name?
He makes me think of the Undertaker.
No, not the Undertaker. But I'm going off memory, so like I might have like a distorted.
It's been a long time since I've seen it as well.
Nate.
Nate
Explosion. Nathan Explosion.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I could see that.
From
Death Clock.
Death Clock, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, as far as protesting, I agree with Saul. Even a game like that, I mean, I think it was gratuitous, but I don't care in the sense of, I think that that's one of those things where I think everybody can speak for themselves in that and can essentially vote with their wallet. Somebody makes a game like that thinking that they're going to make any kind of sizable chunk of money.
And they actually do, for the most part, but it doesn't like... To me, it's
well, I don't know. I don't really think that game did very well. It had a lot of negative coverage.
But people still bought the game to play it.
Well, there'll be people who buy it just because of the negative coverage. Is one of the weird things too.
Yeah,
which
just
is
to kind of get the numbers
almost a genuine. I'm not even. It's the perverted altruistic version of supporting free speech, where you literally buy in support of things that you don't even agree with just so you can show
that you could show that, like, yeah, and you know, it also comes down to at the same time too,
which is weird. I don't feel like you should do that. You can support it by doing. You can support it by not protesting. That's essentially what you're doing.
But I've never seen a game come out that I would like try to scurry a mob over and be like, we got to stop this game from being developed and releasing.
Exactly, same thing. Now the closest I've gotten to that is actually today. So I'll roll you through my little story of how this works. I'm sure you saw enough. But yeah, I was literally talking to you about it because I was putting the screen protector and everything on.
So did you not order the screen protector?
I didn't. No, I didn't tell you that.
Thank you for letting me know that.
I didn't order the screen protector. I didn't order the Switch Lite, and I literally was about to. I mean, literally all it was in there, and I was like, I need to get a game, and I was like, and I'm fairly positive that Zelda comes out the same day. Let me go there. And then I started kind of thinking across the board. I was like, well, there's a bunch of other games. And I was like, why is every game $60? Why do these games never drop in price? And I know it's something that we've talked about enough, but it just irked me enough today that I was like, I can't do this. I cannot buy this thing.
The best thing
because I just don't agree with it. And they don't even show signs of trying. Simple things like flash sales and stuff like that is just...
You said they do that.
And they do it, but it's very seldom that their games are part of those flash sales.
No.
Right? Now, one of the closest
Breath
thing...
of the Wild was like $39.99 one time.
Well, that's a good point. If that is true, and I don't know that it is, but there's two things.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
I just didn't have.
I don't want to go digital. Space. That's one of the things.
Well, that's what I was going to say. For you, it's a non-issue in a way because even though you are paying $60 for a game, if it's a game like Zelda that you want really badly, you have it physically. Once you're done with it, the trade-in value retains. It stays high. So then you get better return on investment, which for people like us,
which is one of the upsides to buying one of the games. It's about the only upside to it, but
pretty much, yeah. And for me, you know, depending on the game, I didn't even hear that Zelda was $60 until today. I thought it was going to be $40 or $50 or $60 is steep. But depending on the game, you know, I'm fully digital with Switch.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to trade it in.
Yeah.
So it has to be a really good game, and it has to be in my mind justifiable for $60. Just the same that in Sean's mind, Final Fantasy VIII is justifiable before we saw the pictures. Now the pictures actually look good.
Oh, well, we already knew exactly what we were getting in terms of that. We
never seen a screenshot. There's a screenshot of the game now.
We saw gameplay of the game. They literally, yes, they showed it all. We already knew how good the characters looked.
I thought that was all CGI.
No.
That was gameplay?
But that just goes to show you how much of an upgrade this was.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you that. Now, but let me kind of put you in my mindset. So what it really comes down to, and it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to play Breath of the Wild again. I genuinely, it might happen, but if I ever get a Switch.
Fantastic time.
But not enough for me to want to dive back in. But I love traditional Zelda, and you know that.
So
going back into a game like Link's Awakening is awesome. But my biggest problem kind of came from my brain kind of just doing this order of events of, I like the art style for the new Zelda, but it's a simple art style that could have been done on the 3DS, and if the game were on the 3DS, it would have been $40, which is already questionable, but by nature of being on the console that all Nintendo's games on were $40, it kind of is like, well, $40 is a more appropriate price, even if it's just because of the way Nintendo does their pricing structure. But Nintendo's always done it to where handheld, $40 for our games, first party games, and then or second party partnerships, but whatever. And then whenever they go into console, no matter the game, it's always been $60. Well, now that they're doing away with their handheld in terms of there's no more 3DS support moving forward, and this Switch, definitely with the Lite coming in, is trying to be this de facto pull in to try and get some of that market.
Yeah.
It's essentially the market share from that. It starts to be this thing of like, there's a lot of issues I have with it. First of all, it's a game that would have been $40 with something as simple as literally just a system change. So why is it not $40 on Switch?
I doubt it could run on 60 frames and look as good as it does on the
No, maybe
3DS
not, but the
now.
game very easily could have come out in just as playable of a fashion and look very, very similar in art style on the 3DS and been $40.
I think you forget how bad some of the 3DS games look.
I think you forget how good A Link Between Worlds looked on 3DS.
It did.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like,
but
just because that game
hold on, let me
good.
keep going through it. So there is that, and I think that if they would have wanted to put the game onto the 3DS, and they definitely could have, but they knew that it was time to filter that out, and what better way to do that than just move this game to Switch completely? But why not keep the $40 price point? And then the bigger thing comes down to, that's a 20-plus-year-old game, and we've seen 20-plus-year-old games, sometimes even newer games, getting remade from the ground up with beautiful graphics. And take graphics out of the equation, just remade from the ground up, which is exactly, let's compare apple to apple. A 20-year-old game and okay, like Medieval, it's a 20-year-old game at this point, 21. And they're both being remade from the ground up. And they both look better than their other ones. That's essentially what we'll give it. one of them is $30.
Yeah,
and one of them is $60.
Well,
what is the disconnect? And let's take it away from Sony real quick. Activision puts 3 Crash Bandicoot games that look beautiful and remade from the ground up for $40.
But
why is Nintendo not following the market at all?
Because we've said it before, the same way with Terraria. Like, we would pay more for certain games.
Doesn't mean that I would, as me as behind Terraria, would price it that way.
I'm just saying, though, at the same time, we also don't know at the development teams for this. You have Activision leading through. We have Nintendo who's working on God knows how many products. Activision is thousands of people that are working on games at all times. We don't know what the team for this one was.
No, also, we don't. But it's also a simpler game. There's not voice acting. There's a bunch of things to take into account where it's just a hard game to sell for $60.
It is.
I think that honestly most people would be okay with $40.
Disagreeing, but I'm saying that I think that there are factors here at play that make it more understandable. Because first of all, Nintendo is the only company that deals with scalpers. The only company. Nobody went out and bought the PS Classic when it first came out at all, like they did with the NES Mini.
Also a bad
Amiibos.
Product, though.
Yeah, but
I'll give you that. Yeah.
But they could have went out and got it just in case. You know, their consoles are subject to it, sure, but like Nintendo has to worry about Amiibos, certain games. So there are little reiterations of the SNES and Nintendo Classic, the Switch. The Wii was one of the most, if not the most, prolific selling of consoles ever in terms of selling out, not being able to find one for months, and that's in Texarkana, let alone in California. It might have been easier, actually. I wonder if they do this to help get away from that, and I think that one of the reasons is because there's people that with certain games like Zelda. Do you remember Ocarina of Time on 3DS?
Yes.
The game was $150 on eBay before they announced the Player Selects version of it.
Yep.
I wonder if because of that, they're having to keep this strong $60, it's going to retain its value mindset instead of lowering the prices because of people like that, because it's happened in the past. And maybe they can't manufacture this thousands and thousands of copies. We don't know.
No, we don't know, but let's put it as if you're a business and you make a game, your thing is to sell that game as much as you want to. If I had to really lean on anything,
as much as you can.
Really, that is the wording, as much as you can. But that means that you're going to constantly meet whatever that demand is. That's like saying that they couldn't put enough Switches out, so they're just going to stop making Switches and then never do a different Switch revision. We have already seen that.
No, but
and you keep going
cartridges
through.
And that's been one of the things that people do point out is cartridges.
Bigger
are
cartridges have had a weird expense and weird time being kept up with.
It's any Switch cartridge. It's more expensive.
Cartridges are more expensive than disc, yes.
Yes.
And that's true on Vita as well.
Yes.
And that's true on the DS.
Yeah,
it's true on the 3DS.
Any form of digital media cartridge.
But on top of that, it does come down to the point, though, of the ones that have had the biggest problems being kept up with in terms of meeting production are things that are behind production, which are bigger Switch cartridges that can actually handle bigger games on one cartridge. That's one problem. But yeah, they are more expensive. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that's why I kind of land on this thing of there's room to be a wiggle, right? Disc being so cheap give you a lot of wiggle room. Disc being so easy to manufacture and so many people manufacturing them gives you a lot of wiggle room. Sony and everybody who's ever made a cartridge-based system has to contend with the fact that you do proprietary cartridges and you have to essentially make them or get somebody partnered with it to make them.
I'm glad you brought up Sony because there's a very good example here.
Okay, go ahead.
Persona Golden on the PS Vita.
Yeah, what about it?
Always stayed $40.
If you can, when you find it new,
if you can find it used, it's about $60 to $70.
No, yeah,
everybody stopped selling.
It doesn't mean that no one's immune to this.
No, I know, but I'm just saying
bring that up.
It's the same kind of culture in a sense of a very prolific. Not necessarily niche,
but Sony's not in control of the pricing of that. That's the other side of that. That all comes down to Atlas, is the people that make the game.
Here's the thing, though, right? Is that you said every Switch game, which includes second-party, third-party games,
no, Nintendo games is what I'm specifically talking about. The Nintendo tax on other things is something we can get into in an entirely different thing, but I am specifically talking about why is Nintendo, as a publisher, take everything else out of it. I mean, there are other things that they do have to contend with a little bit, but for the most part, on a publisher level, and that's why I say it's not just console things of where, it's something that we can look at Microsoft and Sony is doing. I want to look at what EA is doing, what Activision is doing, what Ubisoft is doing, and everybody in the publishing space across the board understands that you have to follow a market if you want your game to make as much money as possible.
Yes.
And what you do is over time, as the demand for your game starts to diminish with what's happening from a cost perspective, people will take more risk and dives in diving into a game, even if it's a little bit older, if a game comes down to $20. Perfect example being... What?
You just listed off all those publishers.
Yeah.
Guarantee you that any first-party game produced by or created by Nintendo, published by Nintendo, sells more than any of the games they create.
No, it probably is. But hold on, that leads back to my issue of regardless of how that happens, eventually these games are going to reach a point where they're not selling the same as they otherwise could have. And realistically, what Nintendo could do the easy thing of dropping their prices, even meeting a middle ground. Say the cartridges and the cost involved with cartridges is hard, but a maximum of a $20 drop and within 2 years of release is not crazy. It brings the games down to $40. People will be more likely to buy them new. Nintendo actually sees that revenue, unlike people like Sean Sanderud, one of our patrons, who actually mentioned he has not bought a new Nintendo Switch game at all yet.
Yeah, and therefore the GameStop sees the money, or whoever.
Yeah, whoever whatever it is. And that's my point, is that Nintendo is alienating parts of the customer base where even if they're buying the console, they're not getting the software sales because people are having to resort to different tactics in order to afford the game, whereas a lot of people will look at the convenience of going, well, I can just own the game by myself, however, be it digital, physical, however we're going to do it, and we can say, oh, I'll do that because I like the game, then I can resell it if I want to, but people will take chances, and that's including me. There are a lot of Nintendo Switch games that I have mild interest in that I'd be way more likely to try if I knew that coming into them way later anyway, when I'm so busy with other things, would also give me what every other console and publisher does, which is some form of a price break just because. I mean, it's not... It's like when I buy games on steep sale that I think that I may not even like, but there's something I can be like, that's so interesting to me that at 27... Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I traded it in because I ended up not caring for it. I played enough of it. Paid $27 for it a couple months after it came out. It kind of just washed itself out. It's like, whatever. In the long run, I probably lost $10 on the game, but at least I got to try it. Wasn't that expensive, and I don't feel weird about doing it. For people who are a little weird about a new IP in Horizon Zero Dawn, that game with all of its DLC about a year and a half after release was $20 brand new. God of War, a game that got countless awards. For people who played God of War in the past and didn't care for it, but had interest in this one because they thought that there might have been something, God of War going down to $30, which is what it is right now, not even 2 years after release, might have been enough to get people to go, oh, okay, I'm going to try it now. For $30 is enough for me to take the risk, and there's that risk assessment that you hit with everything, and I just think that Nintendo is missing a large chunk of the market that would otherwise give them more money.
I think they get away with it because so many people buy their games no matter what, that they're just stubborn until they start seeing a shortage. That's also it. Yeah, a shortage of sales, then they'll move down.
Because you were bringing up the scalping, and if anything, I think they're keeping the prices where they are to benefit from the scalping. If they're already putting the games out there and having to deal with scalpers, why not make the maximum amount of money that you can?
Because at that point, there wouldn't be enough left for everybody. It's they've said before that it's hard to manufacture on those cartridges in terms of shortages and stuff. So when you have scalpers buying the Zelda that comes out every year or whatever at $40, you're like, I get what every two you sell.
But why does that happen? So why do all the other physical games published not have an issue of keeping up with stock? If stock was an issue across the board,
it's the games that sell it the most.
Well, then, but what I mean is that new games coming onto the system would still put
because scalpers don't want those games because they're not Zelda.
But there's still new games that are having to be pressed to a cartridge. So it still comes to the point of if there was a shortage in one place, you would continue to see the effects. An agreement
made between developers on how many games they get manufactured. I don't know. We don't know.
I mean, you're right. We don't know. But I think Nintendo needs to do some changes because until then, my mind could change.
I'll never forget.
I'll probably not buy it light.
I'll never forget looking up a copy of 3DS Ocarina of Time and seeing that like the lowest price on anywhere online was $150. Just like, that's ridiculous.
No, it is. It's very stupid, and that's with any game.
Yeah,
but games, definitely physical ones that don't come out, and that was at a time when Nintendo had very rough. Nobody wanted to buy games digitally on the 3DS because if you ever lost or broke your 3DS, all the games were with it, and that was a huge issue.
And now Switch has transfer services,
thankfully fixed
it. Cloud saves. Yeah.
Well, but see, you say transfer services. One of the things I'm also curious about with the Switch is, are we dealing with a console where if I decide to trade one in, just like I would a PS4 or an Xbox, and then later down the road decide to get another one, do I just simply log into my entire libraries there, or do I have to have the old Switch to transfer games? Because that's what the 3DS had. You could transfer games.
Oh, you can transfer or log in and just download them all.
That's what I want to be sure of.
Yeah.
And that's
you just log into your Nintendo account and you just download.
Yeah, and that's good. I thought that was the case, but I want to make sure.
I would not be all digital if that wasn't the case. Like I can go to the store or whatever inside the Switch and I could re-download stuff I've deleted.
Yes, good. Yeah. That's what I was hoping for, because I remember the first time that I logged into my 3DS after I bought a second one.
And they do have a data transfer service too.
Yeah, well, that's good. You can do that on anything, realistically. But it is good that they have that.
Yes,
it's just secondary. When that's the only option, which is what the 3DS had, it's like, how does that work? You always have to have at least an extra 3DS to protect your assets.
Yeah, they've learned a lot from the.
I'm hoping they learn more.
I'll let
That's
you play.
my
I'll let
personal-
you see my Switch Lite when I get in, and you can kind of judge it hands on before you buy.
Yeah, we'll see. Biggest thing I'm sad about, because I can play Link's Awakening in any real fashion, is Astral Chain. And that's a game that I think deserves to be $60. But
Yeah,
different conversation. Anyway, moving on. Mr. Chad Van Horn, one of our de facto patrons, just because we're going to let him keep being that. He says, if violent games make people violent like politicians say, then why haven't the Persona games made me a Persona user yet?
because you haven't found your heart yet. You haven't stole a heart yet, I should say.
Oh, is that the P5
Phantom
plot?
Thieves, yeah. If that's the case, then you're a thief, and stop right there, criminal scum.
Well, of course, and we're going to talk more about a little bit more about the violent video game stuff
No, we're not. from
from last episode when we go into the beginning of the next episode, of course, with our community.
Oh, I thought you were
section.
going to say I was going to say I deleted out the questions we've already de facto answered in our Discord. I deleted
not
them
that
out.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, if you ever see a question gone from Discord or Twitter that you posted, chances are, and we'll mention in the show, that we've answered it on the podcast inadvertently, and we won't revisit that because it's just redundancy. You know, we got to keep it fresh.
Mr. Rob Henry asks, what was the reason for moving from previous gen PS3 to current gen PS4? A
Bloodborne.
game, the new hardware, just that it was a next gen or something else?
Bloodborne.
I knew what yours was.
Yeah,
Yours is
Bloodborne,
easy.
100%. The only reason. Brett?
And he has an addendum I didn't see. And what about making the jump to the new next gen? Is there anything that is making you say that you have to have it yet? Okay,
The fact that I can have backwards compatibility means that there's no reason not to have it.
and very likely from everything we're seeing, enhanced backwards compatibility.
Yeah, so there's no reason for me at that point not to have it.
Yeah, for the PS5, I definitely
now.
agree. It's a mix of everything, right? For me, moving to PS3 to PS4, the Vita was oddly enough the first time that I was ever able to buy a console on launch, and I like that. I liked being able to play the games, and because I'm a tech fan, getting these things day one and being able to kind of ogle over what they have that's new and different is fun. I enjoyed that. Going to the PS4 was all just kind of in line with that. I already loved my PS3. It was already doing something that I loved. I was keeping up with games toward the late generation. Even though I missed a lot of games, I kept up with a lot of the games towards the late generation. So moving to the PS4 was kind of like, I can get the PS4. Any cross-gen game that hits, I can play the improved version, even if it's not much on PS4. It's kind of a wash. I still keep my PS3. I can still play it. So for me, it was kind of a mix of everything. It was the new hardware was exciting to me, and that there was a big jump. The new controller was interesting, and I liked the idea, even though before, it's kind of like one of those things where the DualShock 3 I thought was fine until the DualShock 4 came out. I was like, that's nice. I really appreciate
the best kind
that.
of improvement. The one you don't think you need, but then you find out, hey, this is much better.
Exactly. And I'll even give it to the 360. I actually think the Xbox One controller is more comfortable than the 360s in
the
ways
Xbox
that
One
I wouldn't
controller.
have expected. I actually was surprised at how much I enjoyed.
If-
I still don't care for. I'm just never going to be one who likes the asymmetrical.
If they would have tightened
but
up the sticks a little bit on the Xbox One controller, it'd be my favorite controller of all time.
What is
too
your favorite
sensitive.
controller of all time right now?
It's pretty much a tie between PS4 and Xbox One. The only way the Xbox One has an edge out is because what pissed me off is they reverted. Last gen, PS3's analog sticks were way too sensitive. There's too much movement in them.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot of dead zone.
Xbox 360 controller was perfect in that, but Xbox 360 felt like a toy. The controller felt like a toy.
Yeah.
Now it's the reverse, where they both feel high quality. All the buttons and everything feel high quality. They're tactile, like high quality buttons and stuff. The analog sticks on the 360 or on the one controller are just way too sensitive. It's not like something I would never be able to get used to, but it's a pet peeve of mine. And I smacked around the DualShock 3 for it last gen. I got to smack around the Xbox One for it this gen.
Yeah, so that's it for me. I mean, games are definitely one of the things, and Killzone Shadowfall did not hurt. As somebody who loved Killzone 2 and Killzone 3, getting to see the next one, even though I don't think it was quite as good as those, it was still a great game, and I enjoyed it a lot. So let us know what made you make the jump to PS4, and also what's making you excited about the PS5, if anything. I am curious about that. I'm curious to see what a lot of people end up doing with the PS5. There's so much stuff going into it that I think that we're going to have a lot of people who maybe didn't make the jump on PS4, which I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Because the PS3 gen was so long that in a weird way that wasn't prior to it, that I think a lot of people made the jump early just because of being so fatigued by the system they had.
Yeah.
So it is hard to say. But let's see. Got to roll up to the next one and see if there's any more questions.
I love that cat meme.
Oh, it's great. All right, here's our last thread, and we got some on here. Mr. Matt Hunt says, these are all quickfire.
Okay, cool.
Generic cereal or name brand?
Name brand.
It's hard, but name brand. Do you call it soda or pop?
Soda.
Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi.
Coke. Transformers or GoBots?
Transformers.
Transformers.
What is a GoBot?
You don't know what GoBots is?
No.
It's like, yeah, it's essentially the same question of generic cereal or name brand. It's like generic Transformers, which that's not completely fair because that's like people saying that Digimon is generic Pokemon. It's not, but at the same time, you can kind of see why somebody who doesn't know much about them could land on that.
What is their tagline? Robots in deny or something?
Robots in denial.
Yeah, robots in denial.
He-Man or She-Ra?
He-Man.
He-Man. Man, dude, Skeletor is great. Also, so is the YouTube video of the He-Man music video set to the He-Man rendition cover thing of the 4 Non-Blondes.
Yeah,
dude, that video, if I'm ever in a bad mood, if I can get to something where I can watch that video,
it's become annoying.
It helps.
The older I've gotten, but I still love it.
Hunt's ketchup or Heinz? This is easy.
Heinz. What is wrong with you?
Yes.
That's like asking Kraft barbecue sauce or Sweet Baby Ray's. You say Kraft, I'm gonna craft a paddle to hit you in the head with because that barbecue sauce is disgusting.
Cat Voltron or Car Voltron?
Cat Voltron.
Cat Voltron's pretty dope if I'm being real. So good one. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. I love
we love
quick
fires.
Yeah.
Josh Shoop asks, the Beatles are the greatest band in all of musical history. Discuss why that statement would be true. Discuss why that statement would be false.
Yeah, Beatles are overrated.
No cheap answers either. This is one of those
Beatles
weird
is
things.
Overrated is not a cheap answer.
See, what's weird is I think Saul and I are both in the curve of being young enough. And it doesn't mean that there are people there's not people in our generation that are all over the Beatles. There are a few.
No,
but
there's a lot. There's more than you think there is.
There are people that
especially
claim
people
to like the
us.
Beatles, but I would be guaranteed that if you actually dug in, it's very similar to the people that wear the Sublime T-shirt and they only know Santeria. It's one of those situations where I think that there's a lot of people who will do things that would make you think that they are fans of it for whatever reason, be it keychains, stickers, T-shirts, things like that.
No, like I know people that they claim.
I do know people that love the Beatles,
now,
and or at least like them. I'm not going to say love, but
you know what
like
Amy's favorite movie is?
Probably Across the Universe.
It is.
Yeah,
it
but
really
to be fair, that's
actually a good movie.
It's not a terrible movie.
No.
I don't really care for the Beatles.
And listen, I don't mind the Beatles. It's like Queen. Queen has some bangers.
Queen has some bangers.
Then there's some really bad songs people say are like some of the most musically composed songs ever. And I'm like, no.
I'm gonna say it probably something that's gonna be taken as a blasphemy here. There's not a single Beatles song that I like.
I like about 10 of them, and it's
of that comes from how wildly okay. This is like looking and they're the only other band that in my repertoire that I can really think of that I feel like went this direction for a hot second and then at least managed to get out for a lot of people. Metallica. When you look at them, it's like they started one way and then they kind of every evolution made sense all the way up until Load and Reload, where it was like and maybe
I
even
liked Load and Reload.
Oh, I liked them too.
That had Fuel on it, right? Or no, Fuel was self-titled.
No, Fuel's on Load.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'm just thinking of the single.
And no wrong, there's good songs on all those albums. Have got some of the worst Metallica songs, and they've got some of my favorite.
It does.
Outlaw's Horn is an amazing song. I love it. Devil's Dance, great song. I love that song.
I don't like that song at all.
But my point being across that, Bleeding Me is another good song.
Now that is a good song.
But when you're looking at those albums, they're the albums that when you go through the discography, and like if you showed somebody 10 songs from Metallica and 2 of them were from that album, I guarantee you everyone can go, what was up with that?
Yeah.
What is that? And my point being is
give me fire, give me
the way I feel about the Beatles is very much in line with, I feel like any album you can just pull a couple songs from, definitely depending on where you're at in their career. Before they were massive, it gets real weird. It's like, how is it one time they're singing about obviously doing drugs, and then the next song they're singing about something that makes you think they're doing drugs, but but at least on the surface it's not immediately obvious. Like
it turns out
we all live in a yellow submarine. It's like what is going on here?
I love that song.
But then you also have I hate that song. It's so
love
bad.
That song.
But then you have other songs like I'm pretty sure, not to say that it's not that I hate the song or anything like that, but one of the songs that I think is from them.
What does it sound like? Like a love song?
No, I want to be sure. Come Together.
Yeah.
It's the only song that I can kind of stomach from them. Anything else, I will genuinely turn off because I just don't care for it.
See,
but
I don't think that there's anything special.
My point being
is
that it's such a wild difference of what they sound like depending on what area you're in. I feel like they're a hard band to nail down.
Well, and it goes to the meme too of like people say, especially older people, oh, if it wasn't for the Beatles, you wouldn't have the music you have today. You can say that about most artists. I think that
you can say that about every artist, and any artist that ever was able to put out, definitely when it was harder without the internet. You can't say
about artists you never heard of.
Well, what I mean by that is for someone who makes music right now, every artist that has ever existed, one of them influenced one of the other people.
I think the only thing they had going for them was that they made the crazed fandoms, and I say that in a good way, like as in popularity. They made that popular. They made it okay to geek out about a band, where previously, before that, I feel like the way people reacted toward Beatle fans was not the norm to act that way over a band. Well, I felt like it was something you were supposed to be casual about. Like, yeah, that's a good song. But to go to concerts and to wear the merch and to be all crazy and dancing and stuff,
like crazy,
yeah, that
too.
Felt like
hype, like the introduction of hype around a band.
I felt like that was one of the cornerstones of that.
I agree with you to some extent, because when I first saw this question, when he asked it, one of the things I started thinking about was like, it's hard to nail down the differences between somebody who's an individual entity, even if they're supporting musicians that do stuff, and those two people that you think that come to mind are immediately Michael Jackson and Elvis, right? Those are two sides that you can see. It's like Elvis was kind of like he's the king of rock as far as what rock was known as at the time, and then you had Michael Jackson, who's king of pop. But
or is he Prince of Pop?
He's the king of pop, is what people call it. So when you look at those, it's like those two make more sense because they're individuals. Yes, there's other people that are helping them make music, but they're the show, they're the star, they're what people know by name and everything. Then you get a band like the Beatles, where each member was pretty damn famous. And it's like
Ringo.
Well, but people, what's funny is that people literally know him enough to even say that, at least Ringo, or even except for Ringo. But when you look at those things, that's what I mean is, I think it's so hard to look at. We had seen that stuff before, but it was all with Elvis.
Well, I think that there's a lot of
Michael Jackson in one person. It was rare to see it with a band.
Secrets around that band, like the whole.
Well, when they broke up and people.
Yoko, is that her name?
Oko Yono.
I don't know why I can't ever say her name.
Yoko Ono.
Yeah, Yoko Ono. I think there's a lot of controversy around that, the murder, stuff like that. I think that. Back then, that's still something we see now to this day, except it got more coverage back then than anything else around it.
Sure.
And we see it to this day with everything else around us.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that the novelty of that has worn off.
But I will say, I do think that there's at least a little bit of weight. I've got to give them their credit, even if I don't care for them that much as a band. I do know for a fact there are a number of bands I really enjoy who see them as very influential in their musical creation.
I always give artists credit for influence.
That goes back
something that creates other artists.
Yes, and that goes back to one of those things where influence has to matter to an extent. It's kind of like when we were talking about, is Final Fantasy 6 or Final Fantasy 7 better, right? And it's like, and we were talking specifically about, we can really talk about the games too, but we were talking about the themes between Kefka, the theme song for Kefka, and the battle theme for One Wing Angel for 7. But when you're looking at those things, it's like, at some point, you do have to give more credit to the thing that's so influential that it starts to stand on its own and breathe on its own, to where it's like people almost know these things separate from the game. There are people that know One Winged Angel and everything about Sephiroth without ever having played 7, and that's because of things like Kingdom Hearts or Advent Children or something that came in later down the line that was just iconic enough for them to end up hearing about it. So that's one of those odd situations that there is a real important part when you look at how influential a band was to other people. So I'll give them their credit due, but I do not agree with the sentiment that they are the greatest band in all of musical history.
Yeah, I think they did a lot, but doesn't make them the greatest.
Yeah. So one more we have from Mr. Josh Drago. He says, if Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, and Steam had a football team, I actually haven't read this question very well, but I knew that he asked it, but what would they call them? And what would their mascot be? Nintendo's the easiest one for this, right? They'd be the
Mario Strikers, actually.
Let's see. Yeah.
I'm dead serious. They'd be Mario Strikers. Like they've already cemented that.
Well, but Strikers is more traditional soccer, not football. He is talking about American football, to clarify. You don't strike footballs, American football.
Dude, the Detroit Lions, do they lion on the field? Like, what are you doing here?
I guess.
What about the Buccaneers?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the Xboxes, they'd be the Chiefs, and of course it'd be Master Chief. PlayStation's the hardest one to nail down.
They would be blue. What do you mean they would not be blue?
Hold on, but what's the name here?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just talking about so far the uniforms are blue.
The uniform would be blue. Yeah, that's obvious. But who? Okay, so maybe we can figure out who the mascot is and then reverse
Bandicoots.
engineer it from there.
Oh, the Bandicoots.
Well, that gets to be problematic because that depends on an era, right?
That's every one of them.
No, I don't think that's true. Master Chief has always been synonymous, literally, for the entirety of the Xbox's lifespan.
So PlayStation's never been big enough to have one overall mascot?
They don't tend... PlayStation's business model is way different than the others.
I know, I'm joking.
They tend to move away from games
I still
quickly.
think Crash Bandicoot is the de facto. Crash Bandicoot is Spyro, but Spyro doesn't count because it's been on so many Nintendo
Man, if
systems.
I had to really nail it on one, I think if I had to think of one that most people would know...
Crash Bandicoot.
That would be still relevant to PlayStation today and never really lost its exclusivity. Well, no, what I mean is like never lost because there was a time period where people stopped thinking of. Okay, first of all, I don't know if you know this. Crash Mind Over Mutant, I think is the one of the games. It's either that or Crash of the Titans. One of those two.
Game Boy Advance
did not even come to PlayStation 3. The game did not release on PlayStation at all. It came on Xbox 360, came on PSP, came on all these other systems. Did not hit PS3.
Wasn't there a Crash Game Boy Advance game?
Yes, there was.
Wasn't that called Crash of the Titans?
No. Well, there might have been a Game Boy release of it, but I doubt it because that was like 2007, 2008 with those two games. Crash of the Titans and Crash Mind Over Mutant were sequels of each other, and I might have the order backwards. But I would say Nathan Drake is probably the person who literally has.
That's not a football team, unless you could do the.
Well, no, who would be the mascot? That's what I'd say. The hunters, or the treasure hunters, or whatever.
They have like so let's see, navy blue suits,
sick Parvis Magna on the helmet.
Well, no, you gotta have navy blue suits with golden helmets with treasure maps on them.
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. Yeah.
There we go. That was good.
So Steam is the only one, but I don't know that Steam necessarily needed to be in there.
Steam would
They'd be the Steamers.
Steam would be. They would have
the Steam Rollers, maybe.
They would probably have their.
They'd be gray.
Yeah, gray
nice,
with like a blue logo. Steam would probably be
Half-Lifers.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of something in that universe. The crab heads. I don't know.
Okay.
What are those things called? Why can't I think about that?
Calling them crab heads seems like a good enough answer at this point, you know?
Or they could be called
Steam is one of the. Is there really a mascot for Steam? That's
there is. I'm trying to think of
Oh God, what's his name? Actually, I don't know why I can't think of old dude's name.
Newell.
No, not Gabe Newell. The character of Half-Life. I don't know why I can't think of it right now. It's killing me. And as soon as you say it, Gordon Freeman.
Yeah, Gordon Freeman.
Yeah. Didn't even have to look it up.
You could have.
What would their slogan be? Half-Life 3 confirmed.
It's weird because all their stuff in their games are like. I'm trying to think of one for Portal. And they could have blue suits, orange helmets, or something like that.
That would actually be kind of cool.
But I can't think of what.
But I think Half-Life's way bigger than Portal. As much as I love Portal.
I don't know. It's getting up there now. Portal 3. I don't know, but it's getting requested.
Dude, if Portal 3 happens,
whew, people say the same thing about Half-Life.
I would be so happy.
But good question, Josh.
I think we're going to have to skip out on Steam. I don't know. It's so hard to try and nail down one thing.
I would really think that Half-Life would be the Steam one, obviously. But Half-Life or Portal at this point. Or Team Fortress, to be fair, too.
It's been so long since Valve has made a game that the games that they made have become like cult classics.
Yeah. So it's just definitely not Dota.
Really hard. But anyway, that was our last one from Facebook.
Moving on to good old Twitter. Matt Green says, when is your next Brett versus Saul competition?
It's a great idea.
You know, yeah. I hate to say it because I don't want to sound like this is what I'm saying, but if you offer up a prize, it can be whatever you want.
Dude, that was going to be my thing. It's like,
look, the only reason that happened is because one of our kind friends and viewers of the show, Richard, offered up a PS Vita, and he is like, I need you guys to fight to the death or something.
He kind of spearheaded it. Now, look, there's a couple ways we could do this.
Yeah.
I thought about it ever since I read the question because I try not to peek at the Twitter ones, but
I don't.
I'm so active on Twitter that I end up
I just
seeing
scroll
it
to
anyway.
the bottom.
But you know what I was thinking is like what we might do to make this happen. It almost like we need a prize pool. So what we might do is create a Patreon goal or something like that to where if we get a certain extra number,
want cash. I want electronics.
Give us rarities. Well, I was going to say that would be something interesting that wouldn't be too crazy, and it could be something like enough money to cover you and Annie going out to eat, or me and you, or me and Hannah. You know, it's like whoever wins.
I don't need your money.
We
don't need your
money.
Electronics.
But it was
offer up your collector's editions.
I'll say that it was
offer up your collector's editions.
It was more interesting that it was something that was an import, and Saul didn't have a Vita at the time. And if I would have gotten it, it would have been great because I love the old Vita, and I think that's a beautiful model. So it was a place and time and the right situation.
Hold on to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. if anybody has anything interesting of any form, hit us up. And the great thing, well, part of the reason I like that so much is that as much as we could within the bounds of certain games and what we could get to work, for the most part, what we did was entirely up to Richard, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
It was cool to be like he told us
called
what
the
game,
shots. Yeah,
he told us what games we were going to play,
Tell you
how
what,
many we had to play.
Here's the new challenge. One of you guys give us your reserve for your collector's edition of Death Stranding, and you call the shots. Tell us what games we're fighting each other in. 3 games, like we did Call of Duty, not Forza, Gran Turismo, and Mortal Kombat versus.
We did Injustice.
Yeah,
but
Injustice. Yeah, I hate that game. But and then that was fun. So we'll let everybody call their shot. So, if you want to see something like that, feel free to offer up prizes or something, and we'll call the shots and do it that way. Our good buddy, Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah. Our good buddy, Shaquille O'Neal. Long listener of the show.
Long listener to the show. Thank you, buddy. He says, we are in August. So what are your current Game of the Year candidates?
I had a feeling that you're going to be tight-lipped on this, but I wanted to see what you would say.
I'm not saying anything because it ruins the Game of the Year episodes. I'm going to say Dark Souls 3.
Good Lord. Well, what I will say, and I'm not going to put any game names out there, or at least specifically I'm talking about for Game of the Year, but in a year like this where Sony is going toward the end and a lot of publishers are kind of doing this wrapping up thing, it's been an odd year for releases. And I feel like we had such a strong 2 years in a row from everybody, be it second party people.
Such a flat year.
It's been a really odd year that I actually think the game that is occupying my mind in that slot right now is actually surprising to me, even though I knew I really thought I would enjoy the game. And it's a game that's not perfect by any means. But it's just one of those things where when you're in these weird situations in a year like this, I do want to be a little coy about it too, because I'm hoping that Death Stranding and later down the line games.
That's November, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
So you're not getting much later than that.
I know, it's kind of like right there at the cuff, depending on when we choose to do this.
I'll give you a tease though. There are 3 games that I've played that are current contenders. One I have not beaten yet. So if you listen to the show enough, you know what game that is. I haven't beaten it yet.
I think I know.
Didn't know what you just said. No.
Okay.
That is one of them, though. Next question up goes to our good buddy and personal friend. No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
What do you mean? I haven't had like 80 hours to play Fire Emblem. I wish.
I didn't think so.
I'm like 4 hours into that game.
But I wanted to be sure.
No. Our good buddy and personal friend, Rex Strider, a.k.a. Felipe. Go check him out on Twitch at, of course, Rex Strider. He says, what do you think Sony can do to sell VR to the skeptical consumer? Personally, I think they need to catch up on the Oculus tech. I don't see Sony focusing day one with a remodel, but I bet you they offer a more pro-oriented option later in the PS5's life. So this can get almost bundled into a topic we're going to do in the future, but I'll give you a short answer for now, Felipe, because I don't own a PSVR. The reason I'm going to purchase an Oculus Quest is because I can get the games that I want to play, Beat Saber, Super Hot, stuff like that. Super Hot. I can play them and there's no cables. Like I can literally have it in a, carrying case and I don't have anything to worry about, And once it's charged, it's just sitting in that case and I can store it away and be perfectly fine with it and not have to worry about anything. If they would make the VR, it's not even about the tech at this point from a performance standpoint. If they could make it easier to use and easier to get out of, that has my vote. Right?
It's hard for me to want to answer the same answer as that for the only specific reason, and you kind of actually covered it in yours, of that you don't care what it takes to get to this point as much as you just want it to be easier to get in and out of.
Yeah.
I already think the model I have is not that bad to get in and out of, and the second gen
space and wires and stuff.
The second gen model is even easier. They actually minimized the wiring even more and made it lighter across the board, so it's even easier to use. But by nature of wanting to make sure that they are actually leveraging the power of whatever system that they're using it with. So like right now we know PSVR works with PS4, it works with PS4 Pro, and you get a notable increase if you're on PS4 Pro in terms of output resolution per eye, and that has a notable difference, I promise. If you have seen the two, because you remember the VR came out 2 weeks or so before the Pro did, so I actually played the VR 2 weeks on the original unit, and as soon as I went to the Pro with it, it was incredibly noticeable. So that does matter, definitely to me. And it gets to the point of they're going to want to leverage PS5. We already know that the PSVR right now, the headset that we have, is going to work with PS5. And because PS5 is more powerful, the PS5 will be the thing that actually pushes the current VR headset to its actual limit, because it won't be the system that's being the bottleneck anymore. It'll be, well, the system can literally output the game to VR at a higher resolution than the screens are even at in the VR. We've reached a cap. But the things I think specifically they're going to aim it towards being better for a consumer, for the skeptical consumer, is going to be number one, first and foremost, the thing that happens with everything. It's going to be games. They're going to have to make sure they keep up with games, which Sony has done phenomenal with.
Yeah.
And I'll give them a lot of credit.
What was it, 2 million VR units so far?
Over
4
that
million?
now, yeah. So we're doing pretty good. It's over 2 million. I don't think it's hit 4 million yet. I could be wrong, man. It's been so long since I've had to even check it up.
I thought I read an announcement saying 4 million.
I want to say you're right. I want to say
it's
it's 4.2 million as of March 27th. You're right.
Yeah, that's what it was. So we're probably getting close to 5 million units at this point.
They're over 50% of the market share.
Yeah.
So what that really means is that you have to do something that brings not only the skeptical people. It's not even completely about what Sony can do. It's about what can VR as in technology do, and all the companies behind it do, to make it more palatable or more.
Well, and the casual consumer doesn't want that, right?
Well, it's hard to say, right? But the casual consumer will be easier to pull the trigger and take that risk thing if they can keep price down, which I think Sony's worried about, which is part of why we've seen PSVR do what it's done, not keep up with Oculus Quest and stuff, because they're not worried about releasing a new headset that costs more. They're worried about constantly shaving that price down.
Yeah.
Because if you can get somebody in the doors of VR and they like it just enough that later when you do a better model and you're getting further into the technology,
they're more likely to
buy it day one, or at least early. So I think there's that. I think games are most important, and they've done well, so I think they'll keep that up. And I think secondarily, outside of Saul said, the easier that you can make it to put on, the better. I think it's really hard to make it to where it's cheap, can utilize the PS5's power, and is also wireless. I don't feel like all three of those things can be true.
Right.
I think if it's going to be cost effective and can use the PS5's power, it's going to have to do that through a cord. Now, if you can make that cord weigh almost nothing, great. That's going to get close enough that I think most people don't care. But I think that you would probably agree with this. You have to move away from, and it sounds like they are. We already know for sure that they are doing a PSVR 2, as it were, later in the PS5's life cycle. But I think what's important is they have to move away from the Move technology.
Absolutely.
At least in its current form. If you still use the lights, that's fine. But you need a second camera. Because the reason that you might want to keep it is for backwards compatibility of games that you enjoy in VR. The light technology of Move. Now take everything else and make it better. So if you're going to do lights on the things just for backwards compatibility's sake, that's fine. Do me a second camera that can do better tracking. That's one of the biggest weaknesses that it has. By focusing on one camera and that Move technology, the tracking's a little less than it could be. Add a second camera, you automatically make that better. And then on top of that, where the Move lacks the most is just physical inputs. So it would be going towards a better controller, something along the line of what, like you said, catching up with Oculus and whatnot.
Oculus Quest controller.
Which is more like the hand controllers, where you can control each individual finger by wrapping it around. There's steps in the right direction across the board. I have been very seriously debating buying the $120 3D rudder controller for the PSVR for one reason. I really like Skyrim VR. The only thing that keeps me from wanting to play it is that movement's still just a little too finicky, but it supports the 3D rudder to where if you want to move forward, you have this thing that you sit down with it, but you move your feet forward and your character moves forward. If you want to strafe to the right, you move it like that. And
it's ridiculous that game doesn't support normal movement with like the Move controllers.
Well, because the Move controllers don't have an analog. That's the problem. So it all comes down to the Move is the problem.
Yes.
And because it's a game like Skyrim where a gun doesn't make sense, games like Borderlands 3, because they've updated to support the aim, they already fixed this problem. You have 2 analog sticks and all this stuff, so it feels right. A game like Skyrim, which is way more going to get me into something like that, a great role-playing game that I really want to play, the moment that it becomes easier to move and where I can move and draw an arrow at the same time in free locomotion and not teleporting, that's what I want. And I can get that right now with the 3D rudder, but there's cost that's involved with that, and it's an external periphery, so it's that we need to see Sony take these steps to, even if they released right now, I guarantee you do well, a Move controller with an analog stick on it. But they won't. And I don't blame them. They're trying to keep costs down. So
he does have another question though. So he says, quick question, what would be your dream From Software game? Got a specific setting? Was it From Software, or what if From Software got their hands on this IP? What would be your preferred setting of a next Elden Ring? We already know it's Norse, but we'd say we didn't. Where would you want it to be?
It's gonna sound weird. I'm super partial. Technically it's already happened, which is Bloodborne, and that's that kind of Victorian-looking London setting.
Yeah,
dude, I'm really partial to that. It's super cool looking to me. I like how dark and mysterious and thick the atmosphere is. I love movies like Sweeney Todd, where it takes place in London and it's all like smoky and there's pipe smoke coming out. I just love the aesthetic of that for whatever reason. So return there. Return me to a Bloodborne-like world. That gothic cathedral look with thick, dense atmosphere and grays that are all muted and weird, and then let the color pops happen and surprise you.
The Ring City is still something I need to play through in Dark Souls, but like this is one of the most beautiful areas of any Souls game, and it is like
that's the DLC for the for 3, right? That's what you said.
And I would honestly want a world based around it. Like I could tell that they definitely use Bloodborne. Like there's a gate. I think it's in Ashes, but it's really weird. You can go when you play Ashes of Ariandel. When you beat the final boss of that, it teleports you to the beginning of the next DLC.
Okay.
So
weird.
There's a gate in Ashes because I am playing through Ashes.
Okay. And this is your first time, right?
Yeah, first time. Playing through Ashes of Ariandel. There's a gate. There's the only gate in Dark Souls 3, and when you push it open, it makes the creaking gate noise from Bloodborne. Exact same noise. So
that's cool.
There is certainly some stuff in there, but honestly, yeah, HP Lovecraftian horror, cosmic horror, they've done it. They need to do it again, except what they need to do again is they need to take that. I don't necessarily like the setting as much as I do like high fantasy settings. So like what I'm hoping with Elden Ring that we get is high fantasy Norse mythology with HP Lovecraft cosmic horror.
That's weird though, because I feel like the whole thing about HP Lovecraft is it works really well with that Gothic architecture.
It does,
look.
but
which you're right though, Gothic architecture.
I think Miyazaki could do it great with high fantasy.
It doesn't really lend itself to high fantasy. It's very Yeah, but I don't know. See, I really love that look, though. I mean, in any form, because, Bloodborne has a very exaggerated version of it, which I enjoy. I feel like Bloodborne's probably the closest you're going to get to that style, being close to what the traditional From Software high fantasy look is. I feel like if you look at Bloodborne, it looks like a mixture between the two styles, as close as you're going to get, but it still feels decidedly Gothic and that 18th, even 17th century Gothic era of London, and I love that. But I also like the way that they did it in things like the Order. It's part of the reason I like the Order so much, and why it even drew my attention so much to begin with. Is I really like that Vampire settling on a very similar look and being in actually somewhat similar places when you're going around. I really thought that was cool. I was like, this is it's part of what drew me to Vampire. Is like this feels almost like a de facto sequel to the Order, even though it's also not.
Yeah,
but yeah. That would be my place to go. As far as IP, I think we kind of landed from last time. From Software are so particular that I wouldn't mind seeing them do an IP that's not of their own, but they do so well at creating new IP that I find to be entertaining. And I'm really excited for Elden Ring.
The Miyazaki way is that, and what's cool about all their new IPs is they always lend hints in previous. So I don't know about Demon Souls. That's the only one I'm iffy on. I'm pretty sure there is a Dark Souls reference in Demon Souls somewhere. But in Dark Souls 1, there is Chester, and I showed you him. He looks just like a hunter from Bloodborne.
Doesn't Dark Souls 1 have a Boletaria reference somewhere in it too?
I believe so. If not, Bloodborne has the Boletaria reference in it, I think.
Okay.
But I might be wrong.
Either way, my point being is that Demon Souls has found its way into the other games.
Yeah, but that's more vice versa, because in Dark Souls 3, there's samurai armor that you can obtain. There's one set. It looks very similar to Wolf's armor in Sekiro. So what I'm really curious about is that we already know, and the way that the Souls games works is that you get a teaser at E3, you get gameplay at Gamescom. What I'm curious about is Gamescom's this month. Yeah. I'm curious if we get Elden Ring footage, but
remember we talked, they're going to show it at Gamescom, but it's going to be behind closed doors.
I know, but I'm curious if it leaks. Is what I mean.
We'll see.
There was one enemy, a standalone fight in Sekiro that stands out more than anything else. Do you remember what it was?
I didn't beat Sekiro, so.
You got more than halfway through it, didn't you?
I don't know.
Oh, there's a knight. Oh. And he is really, really...
I still have Sekiro. I just haven't got it back around to it.
I'll just show you a picture real quick, because he is definitely out of place.
Now, no hate on Sekiro. I actually really enjoy the game. I can't remember what pulled me away from it, but to me, it doesn't play to the strengths that I've developed so hard into other From Software games, which is fine. It's not a complaint. It's just that because of that, it led me away from it whenever I started getting too frustrated and had other things. Ooh boy.
But yeah, it's something that he has a great sword and everything. It's something you don't see in this game. And it's not from this time.
That is dude, that looks like if you just shoved a Dark Souls enemy into.
Yeah. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means we're going to get a Dark Souls game after all, Dark Souls 4. They said they're going back to Dark Souls. So Elden Ring's different because Elden Ring is open world. So I don't know how this is going to work. But on to our last question on Twitter, it comes from our good friend No Fate. And he says, why has this kind of behavior been allowed to continue? Where do you see the future of gaming heading? And what he does is he links us a video to Young Yeah, somebody I don't really enjoy. But and he's essentially talking about the EA tricking people into spending money with loot boxes and such. You know, well, hold on now. Which video was it in particular? I don't have it up, so I want to be sure. I remember clicking on it, and I remember it had to do with loot boxes to an extent. But what was it? Was it what was it specifically in relation? Since I don't try to watch or try to read these questions, I can't watch the video. Like I didn't watch the video, but it is for EA's former CEO glowed about manipulating players into spending money. So what I'm assuming this goes to, and this is assumptions, but I'm assuming that the ex-CEO has now said things that they are bragging. They're bragging about getting people to spend on loot boxes. And I think that anything now that we mentioned in our last episode of Triangle Squared is that now the big three are forcing companies to disclose the rates and everything around that nature. I think that it's only been allowed to keep on going because people keep buying the games.
Well, and people keep paying for the microtransactions.
Yeah.
It kind of gets to be there's no real reason to want to stop when the business model shows no signs of slowing down.
And it's not necessarily evil in every situation. So that's a big misconception about that. So just because that they spent money on it doesn't mean that it was evil that you know they were tricked into spending money. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Bungie, they are coming out with daily updates about Shadowkeep, and they released one today with all the armor stuff in it and showed you.
I didn't get to watch it, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it. Did you see
the one yesterday? So you know the 0 hour mission. You've done that, right?
I knew that there was one that they were changing. Well, but I haven't gotten to keep up with it this week. Someone said, "Oh no, never mind. I'm conflating something." There apparently it was either an update that they gave out yesterday or today where they're changing the quest log, not a quest.
Oh yeah.
My bad.
But yeah, it's kind of they're doing that. But you did 0 hour, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the Outbreak quest.
Outbreak, right. Yeah. Did you know that mission was entirely funded because of the sale of one ornament?
No.
For Whisper of the Worm.
Oh, okay.
They could fund that mission alone. They created of that quest through one transaction or one item sold off their store, their Everywhere store, which is fantastic to hear now because they are gone from Activision. They need this kind of support in terms of player base, buying stuff. They can allow them to fund cool stuff like that because that was a really fun mission, really creative mission too. So no, it's not always evil to buy microtransactions. Now, if a game forces you into it because, hey, the odds aren't in your favor unless you do, then yeah. Or if you are a streamer that has been paid by a company to open up boxes and the boxes are in your favor but not in the consumers, then yeah, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, that was something that one of our community members and friends, Sean, had brought up in a video lately. He was talking about...
Kiki brought that up, by the way.
Oh, Kiki did? My bad. You're right. It was Kiki, but I think Sean may have commented on it. I don't remember. Sorry, but yeah, anyway, Kiki did bring it up. And it was specifically talking about how you can see... a company will pay somebody like Saul said, a streamer, to open boxes to promote the game. And what they'll do is they'll take those boxes and that streamer and they'll give the boxes a better odds to get what they're wanting for. So what happens is you see a streamer open 20 boxes and every box gives them something cool, or every other box. Yeah. And people start going, man, if the odds are not that bad, that's pretty cool. I like half of that stuff.
I'm going to go try my luck.
Yeah. And then we see that they
get all whites and greens and no golds and purples.
And it is weird. You know, it'd be different if they were saying like, it'd be different if there was a disclaimer that said like, this is advertisement. We're just trying to show cool stuff that can come from it, but they don't. Yeah, they try and make it look like it's natural.
So
and that becomes it does become icky, and
it's very predatory in some cases. But it's hard to pinpoint which case it's at. Just because the CEO said, you know, we made them spend money doesn't mean that that's a bad thing.
And that's what makes it so hard to kind of deal with. So like Sean's question of like, why does this stuff get to continue going on? A lot of it comes down to the consumers themselves are not wanting to do enough to make a change. You know, you can vote EA as the worst gaming company or the worst company in America years in a row, and It's not going to do anything unless you finally do something to stop giving them money.
It's really ironic that you said that. Do you know what the most voted, the most highly voted company of the worst company of America is?
The most highly voted of the worst companies?
Yes.
EA.
Walmart.
Okay. I was like,
so at a place that you could shop at weekly, that you're almost forced to, for groceries and everything, and in the same place, conveniences or whatever, it's voted the worst company, yet people still go to them. So, places aren't going to change unless you start changing.
Well, and that kind of goes back to my Nintendo Switch Lite thing. Is like, I had that moment with myself today where I was like, I really don't agree with this. Do I just give them my money anyway? And I almost is. Like, I have the ability to. I have the disposable income.
It comes down to if you want to. And then there are times too when you say, hey, I don't agree with this. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna vote my wallet. But then your opinions change. And it's not bad that your opinions change. So,
yeah, and like I said, it doesn't mean I'm never gonna get a Nintendo Switch. I don't know right now. But
yeah, it's just
for right now,
it's like a moment of clarity.
I'm very much
has you more skeptical.
Yes.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I would like to see Nintendo make a little more changes before I decide to give them my wallet again.
Yeah.
Even for a little bit. So
time to move on to the last segment, which is our Discord channel. And we have a lot here from Sean Bobomay.
Here we
Sean Bobomay.
Josh
Bobomay. I don't know where I got that from.
Did you guys play sports growing up? What is your favorite sport to play? Favorite to watch?
I grew up playing baseball, basketball, golf, and football. And
quite the eclectic mix.
So yeah, it was baseball for actual Dixie League, football for school, basketball for church, and golf that my dad taught me how to play.
Now we do mean this at more of a level than like the one time they make you play kickball in PE, right?
No, yeah, this is like going to practice weeklies
or at least playing often because you want to do it.
Yeah, golf was that for me. Like, but yeah, favorite
soccer.
Favorite
for me
to watch,
and soccer actually still goes into my favorite to watch. So I have two. In terms of, I did not actually do NASCAR racing growing up, obviously.
Yucky. Please don't say you watched that.
But no, it's a weird thing, right? It's not my favorite to watch necessarily, but I like it. I do the watch, and my dad doesn't, and that's why I hated watching it with him. I do the watch where you can turn it on, you watch a few laps, and you kind of get a feel of what's going on, and you can appreciate it, and you kind of still watch to make sure nothing crazy is going to happen, at least while you're in.
That.
And then you can switch over and do whatever you want. Play a game, watch something else, and then wait an hour or 30 minutes or whatever your increment that you want to do is, flick back over, kind of get an update. And what happens is sometimes you find yourself, there's enough going on that you'll watch for 45 minutes and not realize it. And then it starts to kind of cool down again. You're like, okay, I'm back down. Back down. It's such a long-winded sport. It's very hard to watch the whole time for me. And just because I have mad respect for NASCAR racing, it's very hard to do. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. But soccer is one that I actually enjoy watching. I don't get to watch it very much because I don't have time to watch sports, but I do like it. And it's also one that I really liked playing when I was growing up. So
I pushed a kid off a slide because of NASCAR once. He had a little Dale Earnhardt car, and it was like one of those die-cast cars or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was being really annoying, and he was like, doing like basically what little kids do, like where he's like, and then he's like rolling it over things, and he eventually started getting like trying to roll up on my back or whatever, and then he kept doing it on my head, and it was just annoying. So I turned around and shoved him off the slide, like 4th grade, 3rd grade.
Okay. My other one was basketball. I did actually play basketball for a good bit, and I was actually pretty good at it when I used to play. I still got some of the handling skills.
Helps out with that.
Yeah, I got some of the handling skills. I can still dribble real well and go between my legs and all the fun stuff. But my shot is way worse than it used to be. Every now and then I'll play again.
Layups.
Yeah,
I was really good.
I'm still good at layups, but that's just, I'm talking more of like actual anywhere else, a typical shot, a 2-point shot, or even going back to a 3-point.
Favorite to watch for me though, I hate watching golf. I can't stand it.
Golf is very similar to NASCAR to me, where it's like sometimes there's a clutch moment where you're watching and you're like, even though this is normally boring, that was kind of cool. But for the most part, it's like, it's really hard to want to watch. Now, here's the thing about those, it's wildly different. NASCAR is boring to watch on TV. It's incredibly fun to watch in person.
It's both boring for golf.
But that's what I was like. Golf is just hard to watch no matter what.
I have to play it. But I love watching the Super Bowl around Super Bowl season. I get really into football around that season, and I learn the teams for the most part, and I get really excited, and I love Super Bowl season. It's my favorite sports season of all time.
See, I like the World Cup.
And baseball is amazing to watch live.
Yeah.
I love going to baseball games live, like Rangers games. Amazing. Most fun I've had going to a sports event.
Never been to a baseball game.
They're really
in real
fun.
time, but they seem like they'd be way more fun than watching.
They are. You get like
watching is terrible.
You get like
to me
delicious, terrible food, and it's just like the atmosphere is real, like it's
loud and
energizing.
banging. And, yeah. Whereas golf is kind of like meant to be calm and like, oh, everybody calm down while he swings.
Yeah. I don't like this next question, Josh. He says, let's have fun with this one. Kingdom Hearts 4 is announced, and this time around, everything is turned on its head so that instead of traveling to Disney planets with Disney characters and the whole thing be Final Fantasy undertones, you're now traveling to Final Fantasy worlds with Final Fantasy characters. Disney is only involved with having some of their characters involved and the overall friendliness of the game. Who would travel alongside Sora? What Final Fantasy worlds would you want them to travel to? Who is the ultimate big bad in the game?
Dude, this one's hard.
It's hard because it's similar to already what Kingdom Hearts is. Right?
I know, right? Because think about this.
Because Kingdom Hearts 1 is the perfect tradition of Disney being the bad guy.
Right. Well, yeah, but think about it this way. Break down Kingdom Hearts 1. That's the best one to kind of use because it's like the framework for everything. Break down Kingdom Hearts 1. Before Kingdom Hearts 1 ever came out, if someone was pitching you the idea of, hey, we're going to make a game where there's a new character who's like a JRPG kid and he runs around with Disney characters, do you think you would have landed it quickly on Donald and Goofy being the two Disney characters that traveled alongside Sora?
I mean, at the time I was so young that like I would.
You probably would have been. Well, that's true because think about now. Say that you didn't. If you had to think and somebody was making say Kingdom Hearts never existed,
it is anything
hard.
Can happen.
It is.
Yeah.
But let's just try and take it where within your brain right now. If you had to have somebody say we're going to make a game and you're going to run around with Disney characters with an all original character.
So the main character is Disney and you have to travel with Sora.
Well. No, going back to just the idea of Kingdom Hearts 1.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like...
Do you think... What I mean by that is, how do you determine who travels alongside Sora from the Final Fantasy universe? Because it's just as hard as trying to land on which Disney characters, be it two or more. That's probably what you're doing, right? Is how many do we want? Okay, 2 people. We're going to say 2 people travel with Sora, right? Do you think if you had to go through the Disney characters that you would have landed on Donald and Goofy being the people that went with Sora? And how do you land on that?
Yeah.
Is it because of the personalities?
How do you land on Final Fantasy characters? Like, there's like... Okay, so I would say Vivi...
I would almost
to replace Donald, obviously.
Well,
Donald's. You
could do it by role, but it's at least it's easier then.
Well, I'm talking about traditionally.
But let's think about it.
Because
okay.
Donald is a caster, Vivi's a caster, Black Mage.
Well, yeah, but even then they had to. That's what I mean. Is like they had to make Donald a caster to make him make sense in this world.
They had to do that for every character.
The benefit that we have,
every character.
I know, yeah, but the benefit we have with Final Fantasy is that replacing somebody who was given a role from a Disney game.
See, that's why I don't like this
is almost easier
because at this point,
but it gets harder because there's so many.
It's not harder because it's just making apparently it's all you supposedly you're doing is making your Final Fantasy draft.
See, I don't think so.
That's all it is.
The reason I say that is I don't think that Donald and Goofy...
You only get 2.
Donald and Goofy serve a very important purpose in terms of how they mesh with Sora and the importance of that.
I don't care about that because I don't care about that because I can't do that.
It's hard.
So I'm going to say Sora is going to go with Vivi, who's a mage, and you have Donald, who's a defender. I'm going to replace Donald with Waka because Waka.
Oh man, it's so hard.
I don't like this question, Josh, because I don't want to think about this because it's.
I'm trying to think of something that's a through line. So like,
well, I mean, it's not.
One of them needs to be named Sid, and it's going to be an all original character named Sid, but that's going to be the Final Fantasy ploy.
That's going to be a story character.
Yeah, so I mean, but who's going alongside? Who's traveling alongside Sora? We're going to have it to where it's another original character.
You're having a pick from Final Fantasy. That's his question.
Yeah, but that's the great thing. I am. Final Fantasy always has a Sid. But it's going to be an all-original Sid this time around.
Yeah, but what is he going to just fly you around?
No, but he's going to be involved with you. He's going to have an important thing. But yeah, he will be part of your transportation stuff.
Still talking about Final Fantasy.
Kingdom Hearts
1. Kingdom Hearts 1. That's why I don't like this question. It doesn't mesh well.
It's so impossible.
It doesn't want me. No.
Look, if you're for what I want to do with the question and what I think he's asking, which is like think about everything.
There's no think he's asking. It's just reverse.
See, I don't agree.
Take Disney out of.
You're taking it as
Disney out of Kingdom Hearts.
Hold on.
Add Final Fantasy. Only Final Fantasy.
Hold on though. What you're taking Kingdom Hearts as is that somebody just took their Disney Hall of Fame that all the people they like and just gave them character roles. That's not what happened.
They did.
Someone obviously went through and said, "Who's a good bad guy?"
No, they didn't. They took literally the most popular Disney characters of all time and put them into a game because they would sell well.
But they gave them roles that made sense.
But they did not care. The only
Tetsuya Nomura did.
The only 2 people who had roles was Donald and Goofy.
No, Maleficent has she's a big baddie.
Ooh, like she was in the movie. That's no new role.
But that's not fair either. But see, there is a new role. There's involved with traveling between and being the leader of a group of other bad guys. That's not what she was before.
She's still
but my point being,
that's the role.
I know, but my point being is
story,
they had to make sense of the characters to fit them in. It didn't have to be Maleficent, but they chose Maleficent for a reason.
Because she's the most famous big bad guy.
I disagree with that entirely.
Name from that time era one other big bad Disney
Dude, Maleficent is so old. Most of the kids who were going to be playing this game didn't even know who Maleficent was except from Disney's House of Mouse.
No.
This question is getting heated.
I know, that's why I don't like it. Next question. Moving on. I can't do it. How about this? Boba May. How about this, my boy Josh? Why don't you just go ahead and you give us what you want us to answer, because I can't do it. It makes me mad to think about, because I don't like meshing worlds like that together when it involves Final Fantasy. It hurts. But then he goes and asks, if you had found out you had 24 hours left to live, what would you do? Make a Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts game.
In 24 hours?
In 24 hours. That's how it's been.
And release it. Just out there to the world. And have your Make-A-Wish, final wish be that you don't want Square Enix and Disney to pull it down.
I'm not going to get a Make-A-Wish.
Yeah, you would. You give it to what you do is even
not everybody whose terminal gets Make-A-Wish.
Hold on, you ask. You just go, hey, my Make-A-Wish request, whether I get one or not, is that
they're going to get back to me in 26 hours. I'm going to be dead.
Is that Square Enix and Disney do not pull this game down?
They're not going to get back to me before I die. I got 24 hours to live.
They'll do it posthumously.
They're going to send it in post mail if they're going to do anything. I'm going to get it 2 weeks later.
No, you'll release the game, and your request will be that they don't take it down. And whether they grant it or not will just be determined by whether they eventually take it down or not. It'll be a really poorly made game if you made it in 24 hours. So is it really going to hurt any of their sales?
Why would sales matter? I'm dead. I don't get it.
People aren't buying it. You're just making a game and releasing it for free, right?
I'm going to stab the hell out of you.
What would I do?
I would do my perfect date with my wife. The one I've talked about before. Sushi,
yeah.
A movie at home, stuff like that.
Would you cry in between everything because you knew it would be your last time?
Probably, at least a little bit.
Do you think it'd be freeing?
Yeah.
In a weird way? To know that this is for sure the last time you're doing all these things?
Yeah, because you would be able... Okay, so like one thing about death that sucks is that you could say goodbye, but you don't know if you're really saying goodbye or not. Mm-hmm. Or that's anything in life. This you'd have complete...
Based off the wording of this, it's not, we think you have 24 hours to live. A
you
doctor says, hey, we're going to shoot you in the head in 24 hours. You're going to die.
You would have complete understanding and acceptance. And that's why I think it would be... Like, I'm not going to go fly across the world. I'm not going to waste any time traveling. I'm going to do it all here.
See, it gets weird because there's people that you want to, but the most immediately important people to me would be essentially all my friends here. So you,
I wouldn't tell nobody. I'll tell Andy. That's it.
No, man, I'd tell the rest of my friends.
No, you know how much time you're going to spend on the phone talking
No, not that. I would get y'all all together at once. And we kind of just sit, and then I would spend a large chunk of time. If I died right now, let's say 24 hours. Kyrie's very young. I would try and instill all the things I feel like she needs to know.
Are you going to stay
in
up
that
for 24 hours? Or are you going to have only 16 hours?
Absolutely. No, I will stay up.
Okay, so you're going to waste like 8 hours just talking to family members.
Yeah, it's not friends.
A waste. I mean, not a waste, but it's not what I would do. I would just be like...
I find that fulfilling.
I would write out a manifesto, memento, and I would basically write out that, and then I'd tell Annie, I'd print it out and be like, this is what you give my family.
Yeah. Then you just spend as much time as you'd spend just talking to them naturally.
Oh, I could type like 180 words per minute. I don't have to worry about that.
That's just where we're different. But no, I would spend my time doing that, and I would spend I'd spend at least half of that 24-hour segment, 12 hours with Kyrie, talking with her, playing with her, getting her good memories of me, and then trying to have her understand all the things of. I try my best to make her understand that I'm not going to be around.
Daddy's going to get shot in the head. I'm not going to be home. So I'm just not.
Which has got to be hard, right? To explain to a 4-year-old and have it make sense, but.
Just don't tell her.
I would rather her know than be like, where'd Daddy go?
She's still going to ask that when you're dead.
Which she probably would, but at least I had the chance to try and make it.
You'll be
This
dead.
is sombering. This is kind of sad.
Well, this is something that's fun because you obviously this is not going to be anything like, this is not how it would truly be.
I love that Joe on here.
He said, probably spend all my money left in my account to get Piper Perry to do weird stuff with me.
That's the most true answer. He just goes, the first thing that someone would do is like, I would, and I guess I can't lie, I'd be like, hey, before I die, I want one weird, freaky thing to happen that I was involved with just so I can say I experienced it. Whatever it be, it's fine.
So we have 3 more questions left. Well, technically, it's Oathkeeper Saturday. And then they say Swanland, that's all part of his.
The 9th would be the cutoff date. So Boba May's is the next Boba May question is last.
Yes. Okay, so Atlas, you kind of have me confused because you say Final Fantasy VII Remake is finally coming. How do you want them to handle leveling, abilities, inventory across all parts? It's likely each game will be literally a separate game in that regard, unless they want to choke off leveling and such in the first two parts and have room to grow.
So I think what he's asking here, and
Yeah,
I really do get it, is I'm fairly. Do you want them to have it? How do you want them to handle your leveling? Where do you want your level to stay? Do you want to start the second? Say that there's a trilogy. Do you want to start the second game being the level you were in the thing? Do you want them to artificially cap that? Or,
yes.
Or do you?
I want there to be a soft cap, specifically a soft experience cap, so that you can grind as much as you want, but the more you do it, the less XP you get.
Well, see, my thing
past a certain point. I'm not saying
my thing would I'd want it to make sense within the scope of the game, but I would do it like this, where the sections they're doing have it to where within that game, the things that you can already get within reason, and maybe one high end thing that you'd normally get later in the game, give it to you so you feel that power, and give me the one game, let me level up, and then do the Mass Effect system.
Even in the base
do the idea
game
of a Mass Effect system. Let me transfer. Let the next game realize I have a save, pull it forward, have some of my stuff involved with that.
Are we going to be able to level up stats in this game or something?
Well,
that I haven't seen.
You think so? I mean, it's what what I mean by that.
You didn't get to in the first one.
Well, but they're changing the way the combat works.
I know, but I'm saying like,
or do you mean like traditional Western RPG stat?
No, changes? I'm talking about traditional old school JRPGs where you level up and it's like depending on what you fought, you get your stats leveled up, like Pokemon.
Okay, yeah,
and like Final Fantasy, depending on what you fought, your stats level up accordingly.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. They should not go to a new leveling up at all.
I don't mean that either. I think he just means how do you want your levels to carry across all three games if it ends up being 3?
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
I'd want to do it like the Mass Effect thing or any other game that has a save notification where it looks and says, we know that you have a character. We're going to pull that information that we can in that makes sense. And
didn't the Final Fantasy 15 open beta do that with the actual base game? Where you just resumed a save point?
I do not know.
I'm pretty sure
I genuinely don't. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, so y'all let me know if we know that. I want it just like that, though. I want to be able to hop right on back in where I left off at.
I would love the ability to carry your character forward because it would make it feel, and how they do that, I'm not sure. That's just depending on how they want it. But I would love to not feel like I'm leaving every single thing behind, like Destiny did. And the problem with the way Destiny did it with Destiny 2, and it's not just, it just is the problem I had with it, is that you're your character by character design alone. That's it. Character design and class. That's the only thing that you actually carried over, and so it felt like you essentially made a new character anyway. The only benefit you had is that the opening of the game does rest on the fact that you'd played the game before. And if you were new to Destiny and coming into Destiny 2, the opening made no sense because your Guardian didn't exist already. But that is aside from the point. I would like the idea of being able to carry your save forward some way, somehow. All right, and we got one right here, the last one from Mr. Josh. He says, I was going to ask about your opinions concerning violence in video games and how that pot is getting stirred up again because ill-informed politicians that have no fucking clue. But honestly, I can't even think straight, let alone text straight. So yeah, fuck it. Best chips and what flavor chip?
I like this question a lot. I'm a very simple man when it comes to chips, but I will say that we did have a couple people respond to that, and I might have lost it. Let me get to it real quick. But in particular, we did have one response to that, which was one of my favorites, and it was a good buddy Rob, and it was the honey barbecue flavor twist.
Those actually are pretty good.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Those
did somebody? Good. Okay, I think I had a dream here. No, he said it. Wrapped in pepperoni.
Whoa.
That sounds delicious.
What is this?
It's the same thing. You take one of those chips, and you just put pepperoni around it. You just eat it with pepperoni attached.
Woo.
That actually sounds really good.
But that sounds good.
Those are one of my favorite chips, and they have been ever since they came out, like in the early 2000s. But there's a massive problem with them, and that's if you eat them without gloves, your hands are orange.
Oh,
and they do not come off.
Like, very much like Doritos.
No, worse.
It is worse.
Your knuckles are like tainted orange for like 2 days, and like that's after multiple showers. I shower twice a day. Even scrubbing sometimes.
I'm a basic man.
I scrub all the time.
For most of the chips, I actually I really like Ruffles. Vinegar. I like the little bit of textural that the Ruffle cut.
Plain Ruffles are underrated.
Oh, they're very good. Yeah. But my favorite flavor of Ruffles is sour cream and cheddar.
Yucky.
Yucky.
I like it, but it's not one of my favorites.
They're delicious. But then I want to go towards when I want to go with a little bit more of a flaky chip and not as crunchy as a chip. Go with the basic Lay's salt and vinegar like I got the other day.
I love salt and
Very
vinegar
good.
chips. I love all Pringles too, but there's not a Pringles flavor I don't like.
Okay, I will give a special shout out to Bugles, because there's nothing quite as fun as putting the little fake nails on
you can't do it anymore.
Oh, you still can.
No,
It's just,
you can't.
they're not very big.
No,
you can do it as a kid.
I bought them the other day. They're pretty much shriveled. They're like the one, every single one I had, none of them were open. They were pretty much like
Kyrie's babysitter that she had up until she started school this week. But Angela buys them. She buys them by the big bag, and
it might be different because the big bag, they're in a big bag.
But yeah, they're normal. They're the ones that they don't fit as well because my hands are bigger than when I was a kid. But I mean, I can still get them.
Every one of them, they were sealed. Like they were not
Kyrie
sealed,
loves them. Kyrie can put them
they're
on.
They're good, but like I can't do. I can't do witch fingers anymore.
Yeah,
it makes me sad. And our last question up.
No, that's it.
Was that one? Thank you all for joining us for episode 16 of Reader Mail. And don't forget that if you like this content, you can always subscribe to us here on YouTube and like the video. And
likes sharing actually is important, but likes are important as well in terms of getting us up there on YouTube. YouTube is a hard platform to survive on.
It is. It's even hard when you're getting cut off.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I was going to say, share us with friends and family if you like us, and let them know that we're not just a bunch of jerk-offs who have microphones, that we're actually good people. And we'll see you guys back for episode 17.
Yep.
If you happen to skip out on the next episode of Triangle Squared or Dickish at Best, I recommend you watch both of them. They're both really, really good.
And then we have, of course, if you're listening to us on any kind of podcast service that has a rating form, please give us a rating. It just helps us know what you do and don't like about the show. But more importantly, it helps other people know if they should give us their time. And if you feel like you have enjoyed this time, we'd appreciate it if you'd go forward doing that. And lastly, you can, of course, support the show on Patreon and give as little as $1 a month to get early access to this show, Dickish at Best, and some other cool things, as well as some other tiers that you can go and check out.
Give me your 100 pennies.
Give me your 100 pennies. But until next time, this has been Triangle Squared, a Reader Mail.
A Reader Mail.
Podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to our patrons, Chad V, Dan Barber, Josh Jarrell, Matthew Green. My name is Dan, Douglas Below. Sean Santarud, Eric McAllister, Matt Sycamore, Shadowist, Stephen Salazar, The Stonard, Travis Blow, Eduardo Palomino, Stefan Swanlin, Coy Live, Philip Laguerre, Corey Hickerson, Brian, Donovan Williams, William Digital Spooker, Derek Porter, Josh Ayers, Thomas McKinnis, Brandon Edwards, Sean One Neo, and a recent addition that I forgot to put on last night is Mr. Tyler. And I will get you added on there, Tyler. Appreciate you, sir. But until next time, thank you.